Yes.
Okay.
It's not.
We're leaving that door open.
We'll take care of it. All right. Leave it, it's taken care of.
I don't think, hold on.
The time is 7:01. I call this session of the Whitewater Student Government to order. If you're able, please rise. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, Madam Clerk.
Senator Carter.
Here.
Senator Irwin.
Here.
Senator Eskerow.
Here.
Senator Michael.
Here.
Senator Miller.
Here.
Senator Patrice. Senator Rosewitz. Senator Smith.
Here.
Speaker Wilson.
Present. And with that, we move to special orders, starting with the Senate oath of office. If you were appointed to a Senate seat last week and had your signature packet verified by the clerk, please come up to the front, recite the oath of office. Given you have been chosen by the students of the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater as a senator on this student government, understanding that you have been chosen to perform such an active and important role, do you accept the position of senator and all the responsibilities, duties, and privileges it will include? If so, say, "We will to the best of our ability."
We will to the best of our ability.
Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Emily Houston,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to fulfill the obligations and responsibilities of my office,
to fulfill the obligations and responsibilities of my office,
to be knowledgeable of
to be knowledgeable of
and uphold the WSG Constitution,
and uphold the WSG Constitution,
the WSG standing rules,
the WSG standing rules,
and university policies,
and university policies,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. It is my pleasure to introduce the newest senators of the Whitewater Student Government. Alrighty, and with that, we will move into the appointment of one Drumlin District Senator. Is there anyone in the gallery tonight interested in running for a Drumlin District Senate seat? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, with that, we'll move on to the appointment of 6 off-campus district seats. Is there anyone in the gallery tonight interested in running for an off-campus district seat? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, with that, we'll move into the appointment of 2 Rock County district seats. Is there anyone in the gallery tonight interested in running for a Rock County district seat? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, with that, we'll move to the appointment of 3 at-large district seats. Is there anyone in the gallery tonight interested in running for an at-large district seat? Yes. Wonderful. If you could come over to the podium. Please ensure the President, please tell him your name. If you could spell it out for him so he spells it out correctly. Type it in.
There's an old TV
Look at
where
this,
you
yeah.
said, bring your name.
This is last another, right? Dude.
All right, welcome folks. You will each have 3 minutes to tell us a little bit about why you want to be the next senator of the Whitewater Student Government. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Corey Bull. I am a freshman, though academically I am a sophomore here at the University of Whitewater. Recently, after being on campus for a good amount and really acclimating to the environment, I found that it's a very nurturing place of education, personality, people can really find themselves. But even then, that isn't to say that there may be not exactly faults, but cracks that could be filled or improved to really both lighten up the student experience, make sure that the education getting really skills them to utilize in their everyday life, as well as just making sure that they are taking care of themselves in a manner that it's safe, it promotes healthy lifestyle and overall improves society. Okay. Personally, I did try to run for Drumlin Senator in a previous semester. I found myself too overworked with acclimating to the campus, and so forth. But after really adjusting, I realized that there are some things that could be improved on that I've been slowly but surely workshopping and communicating with some either staff or even members of the board themselves about things that I think you could improve that since the University of Whitewater experience.
Hello everybody, for those of you that were here last week, I am back. For those of you that are new, my name is Dayton Punzel, and I'm a proud University of Wisconsin-Whitewater student. A little bit of background about me, just served 8 years in the military, just came off active duty officially on Saturday. Woo! I have been all over the globe. I've been to Germany, Poland, and then for continental United States, I've been to Kansas, Maryland, and most of the East Coast. Why I want to be a senator? I want to be a senator because it is our duty as people in a society to help each other, regardless of who we are. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That has on that.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tyler. I'm a senior here at Whitewater. Though this is my 5th year. It's been some up and down times here, but I'm managing to persevere. I thought about when I first came here in 2020, 2021, about joining the student government. This is something that I came here specifically to try and better the lives of other people, and I see this as the best way for me to learn how to do that. And I want to help everyone else here at Whitewater. And as a public administration, public policy major, I feel like we can come up with some good ideas together. As mentioned earlier, of course, there are plenty of cracks in the system that needs to be filled, of course. And I'm just excited to work with people. I just want to help people out. Truly from the bottom of my heart. I just want to be as positive impact as I possibly can on as many people as I possibly can.
With that, we'll move into questions. All questions must be asked to all 3 candidates. Senator Beasley.
What is one thing that you want to change around campus?
Reverse order. It's up to you.
Well, for me, I think the dining system is something that needs change. The food here has been complained about multiple times since I've gotten here, and it's, quite frankly, the complaints have only gotten worse, as well as the dining dollars and the purple points. I feel problems with that need to be addressed. I don't know exactly how, but I definitely know that that's one area of improvement that we should see upon my return.
Okay, excellent question. So far, I've been on campus for 3 weeks, and it's gonna sound a little bit, not the greatest, but I haven't really noticed any problems quite yet. Given the question at a later date, I would definitely be able to give a more defined answer.
Thank you. After doing a little bit of research, the UW-Whitewater website itself, while maybe not exactly policy related, has a little bit of an issue with it where some links may be dead links. I see that as an issue where for prospective students, they want to learn about what their major and other, excuse me, what other things on campus that they can do, provide to them why Whitewater, right? And with that, if you lead to that link, you have to go even further the kind of information or sometimes you may just give up because the time crunch or the other issue that I see with the website is while we are known to be a business major website, I have noticed that there is a little bit of almost like a website bias where the College of Business and Education has a much sleeker, much more modern design. The pictures going to a monochromatic format when you hover over them. And then if you look at the College of Arts and Communications, you don't get that. It's just the same old rectangular boxes that change the information that's being displayed. And seeing that really modernize the whole, perhaps not the whole website, but each major to at least be equal in coding and show we aren't just pushing this one big this one big college to students, but rather it's a whole experience. Otherwise it creates a feeling of maybe it's not as large as other programs, and really that enrichment of showing that University of Whitewater is very well known, and without the proper updates and necessary changes to really show that we don't get that.
Any questions? Senator Cal?
What perspective do you think you could bring to this body that you think might not be represented at this table? Whatever kind of way you'd like to take this.
Yeah, we'll reverse back.
I'm of the mind that even small details matter. Big picture, of course, is always important, but when you really get down to it, if there is an issue or problem that needs to be addressed, even on a minor scale, it should be. You can have a big statue, but if small details are just not right, it really reduces the whole value, even in the eye of the user.
That's an interesting question. So my perspective on what I can bring to the table is, first of all, I'd like to borrow a little bit from Bowles. Right?
Yeah.
From Bowles, and remember that the minute details are a very big part of what a Senate body should be. But another big part, in my opinion, is remembering that we are for the people, made up by the people, and we are the voice of the people. We should always remember that we work for the people of Whitewater and not forget on where we stand in our community.
I truly couldn't say much better than that, but my perspective is just collaborating so we can solve these ideas that and problems that are brought up to us, and also seeking out those ideas or those problems. The perspective I bring, I feel it may take some time getting adjusted to the Senate and the student government, how it works, but I feel that I am truly committed to this. This is my life. What I am living for is to better people and to simply have, like I said earlier, the most positive impact that I possibly can on as many people as I possibly can, and to use my place of privilege to uplift those who don't have that same privilege as I do. And so I feel like I can bring that to it.
Any other questions? We'll take one more. Senator Carter?
How would you describe your leadership style in one word?
We'll sit in the middle. We'll go over there.
I would describe my leadership style as servant. In order to be a good leader, you also have to be a good follower first. If you can't follow and listen to your own subordinates, you're never going to accomplish the mission, regardless of how easy it may seem.
One word, sorry.
No, let's take that.
One word to describe me as a leader is a learner. I strive to learn as much as I possibly can. I strive to improve myself every single day. It's very tough, but I try to persevere and I try to learn from all of the mistakes that I've made. And that's partially the reason why I'm here today.
I guess I would have to say amorphous, a way that really, I think that depending on what the situation needs, able to adapt easily. I can definitely be a little headstrong in some aspects, but once I get my perspective turned around, it'll be easier to really just focus on what needs to be done and leading those who may not know where to go.
Wonderful. Great job, folks. Please ensure that your name is correctly spelled, and if you could all, before you part ways back to the gallery, re-say your name so every senator is kind of familiar with the name of the face.
Go slow. Hansel.
Bowl. Wonderful. And as we have 3 seats open tonight, you can say one name, you can say 2 names, you can say 3 names, or if you're in favor of all 3 names, you can say aye. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. With that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senator Carter,
Aye.
Senator Irwin,
Aye.
Senator Esterholm,
Aye.
Senator Gross,
Aye.
Senator Houston,
Aye.
Senator Colvin,
Aye.
Senator Michael,
Aye.
Senator Miller,
Aye.
Senator Petrikis,
Aye.
Senator Purnell,
Aye.
Senator Schmidt,
Aye.
Senator Wheaton,
Goats and Bowl. Why is it that?
Speaker Wilson.
Aye. And with that, it is my pleasure to announce to you all the 3 newest senators of the Whitewater Student Government. If the 3 of you could see me after the meeting, just come right up and give you some instructions. Thank you all so much. Wonderful job. With that, we'll move on to guest speakers. Our guest speakers for the night with the Chief of Police, Dan Meyer, as well as Assistant Fire Chief Ryan Beef. Wonderful job, President Bradley, pulling up the slideshow as well.
Just because he doesn't do it, it's
Come to the floor.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate you guys allowing us the time to speak with you tonight. Becky and I were talking, I feel very old sitting in this group and seeing all you guys here, so. In respect of your time, we've got 20 slides or so. I'm gonna try to keep it to about 30 seconds to a minute per slide. We did this for city staff here in about 40 minutes, so there's a lot more we could dig into for each of these, and I don't wanna waste anybody's time. So, if you haven't heard, the city has a referendum question that's gonna be on the ballot April 1st. It's for police staff as well as fire EMS staff, a dispatcher, and then also some capital funding. So I'm Dan Meyer, I'm the Chief of Police with the City Police Department. Also with me is Ryan Dion, Assistant Chief with the Fire Department. And John Whitell is our City Manager. He is not obviously with us tonight. So just to start it off, ultimately what this comes down to is we are seeing ever increasing call volume as well as increasing complexity of call type. And we just are not increasing staff to keep up with that. So I'm going to run through on the police department side what that looks like. We had a Fitch and Associates provided us with an organizational and workload study just this last fall in 2024. So as much as possible, we're trying to get some hard statistics in this for you. This graph shows our call volume over a 15-ish year period. Starting in 2010, we had about 7,500 calls a year. And then just last year, we were up to 14,250. So a 90% increase in that time. Over that same period of time, we increased our sworn staffing by absolutely 0. So same number of people to do almost double the work. And as a result of that, if we aren't increasing the number of people, we, by the nature of the issue, we're increasing the number of hours that the people we do have are working. So that led to an 80% increase in overtime hours, with the trend line at least, from 2014 to 2024. So really the nuts and bolts of that for us is there's a lot of things that we can't do in terms of proactive type policing, but as much of a problem as that is, our people are getting burned out and we risk losing the good people that we do. Just kind of second on this. The rule of 60 is kind of a general rule of thumb. The ideal goal is that 60% of an officer's time is spent dedicated to responding to a call, documenting a call, while 40% of the time is spent doing proactive work, whether that's traffic enforcement or on the more positive side, community engagement efforts. So that's just kind of the general rule, that 60-40 split. That's a tough thing for us to track because it's a limitation of our software. We can't say with absolute certainty what every single officer is doing every minute of their shift. But when you look at anecdotal data and as well as overlaying on top of that call volume our traffic enforcement efforts, you see here call volume increasing, annual traffic stops decreasing, and that divergence is really showing us becoming more and more reactive over time. So why is that a problem? Like I mentioned, the traffic stops are going down, and traffic stops are truly the backbone of policing. That's what allows us, just to get out and meet people, contact people, but it also allows us to do OWI enforcement, speed enforcement, the things that make us feel safe on the roadways. It also helps us to find people with warrants. Again, it's just the backbone. That's when you think of police, you think of traffic enforcement. But again, it's not all the negative enforcement stuff. It's us reading to kids. It's just meeting with people, special events, things like this, training time for officers on shift. Those are all the things that the time that we have for that is slowly shrinking. All right, so with this, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Dion, and he's going to talk a little bit about fire.
Thank you, and before I forget, I'm just going to leave these here because we don't have a ton of time, so questions come up, please.
Absolutely wonderful. We got some cards up in front, folks.
So, when you guys were doing your read-in process, your swearing in or whatever just happened, forgive me, something resonated with me that I hadn't thought of when I walked in here. That there's people in this room that weren't here the last time we had a referendum because you folks aren't with us for a goodly amount of time. So, for those that might not know, in 2022, at the end of 2022, coming into 2023, we started full-time staffing at the fire department here. Prior to that, it was 100% paid on call, to where it was kind of that volunteer aspect where people wore a pager, they carried a radio, and when there was a demand need, those people stopped what they were doing at home, cutting their grass, at work, whatever, and came into the fire station to answer the call. We operated that way since 1871. And in a community that size, this size, that is incredible. So in 2022, excuse me, we had a successful referendum to start staffing in 2023. So now we have 4 people on duty per day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But since that initial referendum, we've seen a 32% increase in calls for service. So in short, the people that we have, the need identified at the time, it's not enough. So as I mentioned before, we had that paid on call service model, and that was where we relied primarily or exclusively on the volunteer, if you will. So in 2012, that was the study we did before our most recent one, where we did one with the police department quite recently to analyze their staffing. We had over 100 people that volunteered for the fire department. Today, we have 15 total full-time people between administrators and firefighters and paramedics, which leaves us with just under 20. It's about 17 of these part-time people to help answer calls. The issue that we're having now is not only do we have obviously fewer volunteers or part-time people than we did before, but those folks are under a time crunch. And that's not a Whitewater problem, that is not a Wisconsin problem, that is a nationwide problem. The paid on call service delivery is faltering. The people are good, they're well trained, they're hardworking, they want to do it. The issue is having the time to commit to it. A lot of families, both adults are working, have kids in sports, extracurriculars, and it's tough to make time to respond to these calls. So with that, not only are we getting busier, we're seeing an increase in overlapping calls for service, or what we call call concurrency, okay? So as I said before, we have 4 people on duty, minimum 24 hours a day. To respond in an ambulance per state regulations, that takes 2 people. So when one EMS call comes in, I have reduced my on-duty active force by half. When a second call comes in, fire or EMS, the next two people take it. That's happening 20% of the time. We're out of people. So when those subsequent calls come in, we rely on our paid-on-call folks to come in and help staff the station. The issue we're seeing is out of 1,965 calls for service last year, the 20% call concurrency rate or complexity rate, we don't fight a fire with 4 people. We need a lot more. So those volunteers or part-time people come in to help. We're averaging only about 1.8 additional responders per request, which is a problem, okay? So with this call concurrency rate in 2024, there were 249 such requests. So almost once a day. The on-duty staff is overwhelmed. What is the answer to that? To increase staffing. So our ask in this referendum, or what we're proposing would happen if successful, is we are funding 2 firefighter, paramedics, or firefighter EMTs per day, and we're retooling our existing budget with money that's organically already there that we're using to pay the part-time people, and diverting that to another full-time position. So we're asking in the referendum to fund 2 positions. We are creating a third, organic to the budget right now, for an end result of 3 additional positions. For those that don't know, our firefighters, and most across the nation, work some semblance of an extended shift. Ours do what's called the California swing. So 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 4 days off. So in essence, 3 shifts. So we'd be adding 1 per shift.
Okay, so why are we looking at referendum as the solution here? And I think it's important to address because you hear so many, whether it's school districts or municipalities, going to referendum, and I think at some point the public starts to see this as a quote-unquote easy button solution. And I can tell you that is not the case here. We have done absolutely everything within our power. We've got creative to avoid this outcome. A couple of examples of that, we applied for a federal grant in 2024. It's the COPS hiring grant through the Department of Justice, and we were awarded that. What that covers is $375,000 for 3 officers over a 3-year time period. It's split up $75,000 per officer year 1, $35,000 per officer year 2, $15,000 per officer year 3. The problem is, in year 4, the city's fully responsible for that cost. The problem is with our current budget, in year 1, we really don't have the excess funds to make that work. You know, it's probably 80% funded by the federal government. So while it's an amazing, be an amazing tool for us, without referendum, there's no way to make that a reality. The second thing, we've been, you know, in my time at least, we've never done this, but we've been creative in working with our elected leaders. We actually have right now earmarked $85,000 for an immigration liaison position. It would be a city position, not under the umbrella of the police department, but to be a resource for the immigrant population that's here, as well as city staff that are trying to provide resources for that immigrant population. So just 2 examples of ways that we are working to get the resources we need, but truly we're at a kind of a breaking point where we just can't continue to give the level of service we are currently with the budget that we have. Just a note here, in terms of government efficiency, as of 2023, Whitewater ranked 58th in population out of the 604 municipalities in the state of Wisconsin, but we were actually 409th in per capita property tax levy at $370 per capita. So that's a relatively low tax burden per resident. Whitewater also ranks 465th out of 604 in net basic spending per capita for essential services. So I give that backdrop just to say we've been very efficient with the resources that we are using.
So this slide here, we'll try to keep moving here because I know you guys have other business. This is the overall gist of what's going to happen. 5 officers, 2 cross-trained firefighter EMTs that turn into 3 after we reallocate our budget, and one dispatcher plus the necessary, right? And what that is the police department is gonna model kind of pseudo after what the fire department is doing. We have already an existing allocation for capital, okay? So every year out of our budget, we take a fraction of monies and we stick it away because we know we're gonna have to buy a new apparatus at some point. So we are making every effort to pay for that in cash, or if we do have to borrow, it's very, very little. So the fire department is already doing that. The police department would start doing that because cops need heroes too. So they're gonna model that program after the fire department. I could.
Thanks, man, I appreciate it.
And hopefully avoid borrowing. So I think we calculated it out in the next 10 years, that's gonna save taxpayers around about $700,000 in interest payments. So.
And just to bring that in a little bit, university specific. I don't know how many people are aware, but our dispatch center, if you call 911, you get a dispatcher. Well, it depends how you call, but we have dispatchers in the city, and they are the ones who are dispatching the university police officers. So this additional dispatcher goes directly into making sure that we have the staffing available to dispatch the officers that are here on campus. As well as the 5 officers that will directly benefit the university, because I can tell you just at about 5 o'clock today, we had 4 different calls happening at the same time. We had a 2 motor vehicle accident that happened right outside of Walmart. Not a single city officer was at that crash. We mutual aided all 3 campus officers that were working at the time. They all came off campus to go and take that call for us because we were all tied up. We have mutual aided the university police officers 384 times in 2023 alone. That number's up from an average years prior to that of 252. Still a large number, but it's about a third larger than that. So those additional officers is going to help keep that number low so that your officers can be here to help you on campus. All right, so we'll work through this quickly here, but the total ask is just a shade over $1.3 million. And this is what the question is actually going to look like on the ballot, word for word. I won't take your time, I'll read it to you. Again, this is, if the majority vote is yes, this is what will be included in that. We'll go through that again. How does this actually impact the taxpayer? So for the average, it depends on what county you have property in, but for the average property owner, it's about $20 a month is what it shakes out to. If the majority vote is no, at that point, we're going to have to go back to our common council and make some hard decisions on what we can no longer provide for service. Just as an example, one of the things that we have to consider is for minor traffic accidents, just having a self-report system like a Madison or Milwaukee size department would do. Obviously, that's rare for a community our size and not something that we want, and I think most people in the community probably would not prefer that as well. So again, election day is Tuesday, April 1st. If you have any questions about your polling location or any of that, we've got, it's way down here, the website you can go to get that information. And if I can open up any questions, happy to take them. If not, that's totally fine. But at the bare minimum, we have a website. If you just type in 2025 Whitewater referendum, first thing that'll pop up is our city website webpage devoted to this. We also have an email address you can send specific questions to, Whitewater 2025 referendum at whitewater-wi.net.
That one up top will link to the staffing studies that we recently had completed. Police Department, Fitch and Associates, Fire Department, McMahon. So those are linked up there. If you have a question, any portion of it, it goes to kind of a group email that at Whitewater, referendum at Wisconsin.gov. It gets disseminated to all the key players. So you don't have to worry about, well, I have a police specific question, where do I send it? Send it there and it gets routed to the right person. I left a couple of my cards up there if anybody has any questions or whatever. We will answer questions if you want. If you want to keep moving, you let us know. So, yeah.
You guys voted?
I would just translate a little bit, if I may. Is that $20 a month that Chief Meyer talked about? If you've already, how many of you have signed a lease on or off campus for next year already? Raise your hand. They can't change your lease rate because your landlord is the person that's going to experience that increase. It won't be your lease. So it'll be at least a year before any of that, if this does indeed pass, impact you potentially. And some landlords will choose not to pass it on to you. So that would just be another way of looking at that with these folks that are sitting here tonight. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So just to confirm, this is one referendum for both the police and fire departments, and not two separate referendums for each.
There are two on this ballot. One is the school district, which we have nothing to do with the Whitewater Unified School District referendum. They'll be doing their own information sessions. So you should have been given two separate pieces of information. The one that's not stapled, they'll have some times and dates for our public information sessions, and that will be this PowerPoint, but dived into a little bit deeper. But yes, our referendum is just for public safety, for the city of Whitewater, for that amount in perpetuity. And ours does not exist like a school district referendums sometimes do, where it's this amount this year, one amount the next year, another amount the next year. Ours is exceeding the levy limit by that amount in perpetuity. Good question.
Any other questions? Parliamentarian?
Could you tell us a bit more about the different community engagement events that you have more time for if the referendum passed?
Sure. One thing that we like to do is a Citizen Academy. We used to do that every other year. That's now like once every 4, maybe 5 years. We do cops and kids book reading through Kiwanis. Those are the type of things that we're getting out, having positive engagement. We do a lot of different things. It's just, at this point, it's like they're getting shrunken down, and we're down to like maybe 6, 8 a year. Even things like training, where we work with the school district on rush and fight. Even those things are getting slimmed down to much less than they need to be, because we just don't have the staff time, and it's overtime that's forced. Sometimes we just don't have the people. So.
So you mentioned how several on-campus officers would have to leave campus to respond to calls. How often would you say that happens?
Well, 2023, it had happened 384 times, so more than once a day. Now each one's a little different, because today, for a traffic crash, they're off campus for probably 20 minutes or so. I can tell you for a more major incident, we've had them out there for 12 hours. And some of the major crimes that we've dealt with, they've been out there for many, many hours with us.
It does bear repeating though that is reciprocal. The city police officers will absolutely come help canvas when they're overwhelmed by either complexity or saturation.
It just doesn't happen as much. But for sure, if something major happened here, we'd be we're just not able to pay back at this point, like we're asking.
Not to dwell on this too much, but just to illustrate the need of the funding. Well, you talked about the issues the police department would face if the funding didn't happen. What issues is the fire department looking at if this referendum did not pass?
Oh, so you're talking the status quo. So essentially what happens is right now when we're in times especially of high saturation, where we have more than 2 ambulances out, which happened twice in the last 8 hours today. Our 4 on-duty people were tied up and we relied on people to come in. So those instances, the frequency of that is increasing. If we are unable to meet that demand internally, we will rely, much like Chief Meyer just talked about, on mutual aid from another agency to come help you. Caveat to the fire department side is our next closest agency is not 4.5 blocks away. Our next closest agency is either LaGrange, or Fort, or Milton, or Jefferson. So the implication is if we don't start increasing staffing to meet demand, when you call 911, we're gonna be out of people. And instead of your help being 3, 4, 5 minutes away, it's gonna be 15, 20, 25. Geographically, that's how long it's gonna take for help to get here. Good question.
Senator Reed.
If I remember correctly, firefighters specifically, you mentioned volunteers. No matter the outcome of this referendum, what volunteer opportunities do you need for and could see us Whitewater students helping with?
Interesting question. So the initial training, which is part of the issue why we've had such a shrinking of people wanting to do this, your initial certification gets your state license. It's just a hair under $300, okay? I don't recommend anybody take entry-level firefighter and EMT at the same time. It would be quite overwhelming. So we're talking a semester minimum each, if you can find a section that works for you. Further outfitting a firefighter, I think the last set of gear head to toe that we just bought tipped the scales right around $7,500. So, well, I applaud anyone who would be interested in wanting to do that. Sometimes it's very, very difficult because say we don't get somebody that starts to dabble or say, hey, this is something I could do, and now they're a junior. And by the time we get them through EMT school and fit them for gear for the fire department, they're shaking our hands saying, hey, I just got hired by, and off they go. So as far as volunteer, true volunteerism on the fire department doesn't exist anymore. It is paid on call. So think of it more as a part-time versus they have to just come down for an hour every other Tuesday. It's kind of that demand basis. That's an interesting question. I hope I answered it.
It just clarifies it because I had a different understanding of what you were needing, so that answer was different than what I was thinking. So I'm glad we could clarify that.
Great.
I had kind of a question that I'm running off of that. So you said you're gonna get 2 full-time staff paid through the referendum and then a budget rework to get a second, but you mentioned you just explained the part-timers.
Yep.
What have you done in the past, or what do you plan to do in the future, regardless of this referendum, is there a way to increase that number of part-time staff or on-call folks?
It becomes kind of a delicate balancing act of fiscal responsibility. What can we provide and what can we afford, right? So we have railroad tracks that run through town, right? We carry a lot of fuel oil through town, right? So what if one of those trains tips over and it spills everywhere? I should hire 50 hazmat technicians, right? We can't afford that. So what we do is we build our response model, and the target we look for is about 90%. We want to be able to handle 90% of the stuff that comes in without relying on help. But a department our size and all throughout Walworth County, nobody's doing this on their own. We're all helping each other. So your question is, what do we do? How do we forecast? How do we staff appropriately? Metric extraction. So the first thing I did when I got this job was believe it or not, in a couple years, we were pen and paper for our record management system. True story.
Absolutely.
The first money I spent when I got hired for this job was I bought a digital RMS system, and the metrics that we're able to pull out of that have been quite exceptional. So what we did was we found we had an increased volume on the weekends and severely decreased participation. So what did I do? I made a part-time position to start on Friday night at 6 p.m. and carry through until Monday morning at 6 a.m. So instead of 4 people in the building during times of high need, low participation, now we have 5, and it's working great. So the thought was take some of that money allocated for that part-time work, redivert it, and make 5 people all the time. How do we handle it going forward? Money. We get creative with how we replace rigs. We get creative with potential revenue streams that we're not taking advantage of. Meyer just recently had, I don't want to butcher this a little bit, video redaction for your body cam. There was just legislation that allows them to bill for that now because it's time consuming. They're using that as a revenue stream, so hopefully things like that would present for the fire department as well. But long term, that's hard to say because I don't know what our community is going to look like. I don't know how much the university is going to grow. We have a bunch of housing developments in the works right now that people are starting to pitch. 50, 100 home developments. You build that, you get more tax base, you can hire more people. So it's kind of, you got to play the cards you're dealt on that one.
Any other questions? I'll take one more. McGallard?
What does the timeline for all this look like? From the passing of the referendum, if it does pass, what does that timeline look like?
Sure, April 1st is the vote.
The money wouldn't start rolling in until January
26.
1, 2026.
Thank you.
So if it passes, on the police department side, we are posting for positions basically September of 25, hoping to hire January 1.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
And our timeline would be quite similar.
Well, thank you so much, folks. For anyone who's going to stick around for a while after the meeting, we've got a few pieces of material left, some business cards. Feel free to come grab them. We also have that email, I assume, saved somewhere. And if you'd like to take a look, feel free to send any questions in there as well. Thank you so much, folks. Thank you. You're welcome to stay and watch the amazing shared governance stuff, but otherwise, safe rides home, right?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, with that, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda and minutes, starting with the minutes from February 3rd, 2025. Can I get a motion to approve? Senator Carter.
Motion approved.
Second by Senator Esterhol. Can I get a voice vote?
Acclamation.
Wonderful. Any opposed? Seeing none, like that, the minutes from February 3rd, 2025, will approve unanimously. That will move on to the agenda for February 10th, 2025. Can I get a motion to approve? Deputy Speaker Tricus.
Move to add Dan Meyer, Chief of Police, and Ryan
Dion, assistant.
Assistant Fire Chief, under guest speakers.
Madam Clerk, you want to add that to the agenda today? Can I get a second on that? Senator Cal. And can I get a voice vote?
Acclamation.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it'll be added to the agenda. And with that, can I get a motion to approve the agenda for February 10th, 2025? Senator Gross. Seconded by Senator Wheaton.
Second.
Can I get a voice vote?
Acclamation.
Wonderful. Any opposed? Seeing none, the agenda is passed unanimously. But now we'll move on to student issues and concerns. Are there any student issues and concerns tonight in the gallery? Going once? Going twice? Seeing none, wonderful. With that, we'll move to the reports, starting with external committee reports. The Chancellor's Committee of Disability Concerns. So for those of you who are seeing your first external committee report right now, the way that goes is later you're going to learn that everyone in the room who was a senator was assigned some external and some internal committees. We'll break that down a little later, but an external committee report is what you do after that. So you go to your external committee, you listen, you take some good notes, as I assume Senator Carter did, and then you share them with the body and open yourself up to any questions about the happenings of that committee. Senator Carter, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good evening, senators, executive boards, and most distinguished guests in the room. Here's the report for the Chancellor's Committee. The crosswalk from Esker is fading away and will be repainted during warmer weather. Wheelchair basketball entrance will be a part of the winter Heidi Hall project, and lots of fencing will be around the buildings. Broken concrete has been fixed around campus, especially in front of Roseman. Student tripped and fell, so they got that fixed. UHCS and many of us are seeing an increase in illness. Please wash your hands. And the flu vaccine is still available. It's my favorite four-letter F word, free. I don't know what y'all were thinking, but it's free for all students. There is a book club on campus. Connections are everything. A college student's guide to relationship-rich education, which is being offered to all on Wednesdays from 2 to 3 p.m. with President Bradley in the UC. Kobe is bringing closed captionings to all recorded videos for students. So be on the lookout for that. And then an author is speaking about their book on disabilities on March 11th at 6 p.m. on campus, celebrating the 35th anniversary of the ADA. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield.
Wonderful. Wonderful job. If you have any questions for Senator Carter, but also any questions about external committee reports, we can do that now as well. Any questions?
When is that, Speaker?
March 11th at 6 p.m. I did not get a room date, but once I get that, I will let you know.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, thank you so much, Senator Carter. Wonderful job. With that, we're moving to internal committee reports, of which we have none, and the officer reports, starting with the report of our president of the town rep.
Good evening, everyone.
Please.
Alrighty. A little bit of a long one, so apologies in advance, but last week I met for our regular scheduled meeting with the sheriff governance leaders and members from the chancellor's office. One of you asked me who actually attends these meetings, so I included the list of those who are in attendance. See the chancellor, provost, chief of staff, vice chancellor, student affairs, administrative affairs, university relations are all in attendance. In addition to 4 sheriff governance leaders, which I was one over there, and Dr. Annika Lisberg was there to help share about the campus climate survey. She's not normally at these meetings, but she was for this one. I attended the MLK commemorative event on Tuesday, and glad to see many of you there. I attended the involvement fair on Wednesday for most of the day. Again, thank you to all those who volunteered. Our cabinet meets on Wednesdays, and so did that this past week, and we're doing it again this week. I met with Angela Modoni, the executive director of the University Center, to discuss the shared governance resolution by the other 3 shared governance groups. We're going to talk about that a little later today. I attended an educational event at WCC about hijabs. Parker and I finished 2-on-1s with members of the cabinet. If you need placards, if you just got elected, you lost yours, whatever it might be, you must email Vice President Bain, WSG, VP, at UW.edu. If you don't, you're not going to get one. So please be proactive. We can make sure you have them for the next meeting, all right? Also, I got an email from Debbie Bruder today, over with CSD. There is an Excellence in Disability in Advocacy and Service Award. So if you'd like to nominate any faculty or staff for that award, please see me and I'll get you the link. Additionally, Senator Carter mentioned that I'm leading a book club with Professor Boki Nagi. Book's called Connections Are Everything. I spoke with parliamentarian. I can yield to him if he wants to touch a little more on it. If you attend all 5 of the sessions, one of which is a pizza party, it'll count as an outreach event. The reason that is this book is going to be read by SAI interns, and it's already been read by many housing student staff. If you're kind of on the fence, I can give you the 4 main topics, motifs, whatever you want to call them. 1, relentlessly welcoming. 2, inspiring learning. 3, a web of relations. And 4, asking meaningful questions. To give you all a little background, there are 2 versions of this book. One was meant for kind of faculty, staff, those who work in higher ed, and one was meant for students. When creating the Student Success Framework, for those of you who remember, the Student Success last year created this framework. When creating that, we used the faculty and staff version. So I read that and the student version. Now this is a book club for the student version. So it should be very beneficial to those who attend. Tomorrow, those are all notes I took today, upcoming things. So I'm going to move back to my report now if you're following along. Tomorrow I'll be attending Faculty Senate in this room, 2 p.m. All are welcome. Similar to this, so just sit in the gallery if you decide to come with us. Who will be there tomorrow? I know a couple folks. Speaker, Director Reiser. Yep. Typically the 3 of us. Please stop by, especially if you are particularly interested in what we're going to get to a little later today. The cabinet again will be meeting on Wednesday. Warhawk Dining Committee will be meeting on Friday, so make sure you know if you're on that committee. We'll get to that later. And I will be out of state Friday afternoon until Monday for my godson's first birthday. So if you need to get a hold of me, send me an email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, which likely won't be immediately. With that, I think I covered everything. I'll yield it.
Bradley, so in the spirit of that 4th pillar in that book club, I'm going to ask a question. Is it true that your godson is just the cutest godson anyone's ever? I mean,
if you're interested, pictures after the meeting.
Please.
Ask a meaningful question. That was a very meaningful question.
Deputy Speaker.
Is it true that there's a picture of your godson in the minutes about a year ago?
That is true. That's, yeah, it's relevant, but it's true.
Deputy Speaker.
Do you have the name of the staff, staff version of that book?
A Relationship Rich Education.
The version we are reading is written by the same two gentlemen plus two other authors. It's entitled Connection to Everything. If you're interested, come see me after. The book is free online. Like I said, it's 5 hours total, one of those hours being a pizza party, and it'll count by the grace of the parliamentarian in our regiment.
Is it true that when you print out the PDF, they've got very nice margins on the side for you to take notes and the bottom? Very convenient.
It is true, and if I have a binder, I'll throw it in a binder for you too.
Any other questions for the president tonight? Going once, going twice. Seeing none. With that, I'm advised by the vice president to yield to his report as he's feeling unwell tonight, and we will move into the report of our esteemed vice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So if you've got the paper copy today and turn to the reports, you can look at Vice President names, of course, because you've probably already read it. I just gave folks who need to see it in writing how to get a hold of me, how to make an appointment with me. And that I think so many of you have just taken your oath tonight. So I wanted to just share from our standing rules what our ethics code of conduct is. And I just kind of bolded some pretty important rules for this organization, but just life in general, I think. Stuff that makes, I think, a whole lot of sense. Like, you know, you're not going to make any nasty, malicious, or defamatory statements or reports about people that are not true. Just some stuff that's common knowledge. But since you've just stepped in and we don't have a retreat date yet, I thought, well, you know, at the base of this, we all should be treating people as are outlined in the code of conduct. And then, of course, the meeting conduct one is also there that the speaker has ultimately control over decorum in the room, but thought it might be helpful for all of you to have this quickly. Just remind you about the internship and career fair that is this week. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield to questions.
Any questions for our advisor today, or questions on any of the standing rules sections mentioned? Please get familiar with them if you're new in the room. Any questions? Going once, going twice. Seeing none. With that, we will move on to e-board reports, starting with the report on Director of Academic Affairs, Ms. Hagar.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a good weekend. So last week I met with a few of the deans, Dean Yankee, Dean Ambrose, and Dean Dugan. So some little updates. So within Kobe, there is a new academic success coach who is a former accounting professor. So if you're in finance 344, then you can go to room 1001, and he is there to help. The next expansion is to offer an academic success coach for Econ 201, 202, and 245. And currently, the accounting department does offer tutoring, so if you or anyone else is in accounting, you can go to that. There's been some accreditation work within the College of Arts and Communication, as well as some interior design plans. I also met with Josh Reed, so the career fair is this Wednesday from 11 to 3:30 in the Williams Center, so be sure to stop by there. There's some work with an internship repository being developed, and I've also continued conversations about marketing and engagement so students are more aware that that is a department on campus. And I also take part in the involvement fair. As for this week, I had a meeting with Provost Chenoweth, faculty senate, and then a meeting to discuss the date for the instructor awards that will be in April. With that, I yield to any questions.
I have one. You said earlier, is it an academic success coach?
Yeah.
What, I have no idea what that is.
Okay, yeah. So that is different than the success coaches that are offered in the one-stop. So the academic success, pretty much what you would do, you go to room 1001. If you're in finance, you'd ask questions. I'm in finance right now. I'm talking about like compounding interest. So if I have questions, I would go ask. He's available all day in like regular business hours, and some days extend to like 6 p.m. And so it's pretty much a tutor, but he is a former accounting professor, so someone that has a little bit more knowledge than like a regular undergrad student.
You speak the truth.
Internship repository?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on what that is?
Yeah, so when Director Emeritus Robinson was here and we were working together, one of the things that we continue to advocate for, and I'm continuing, is more programming. And so when we were doing research on what other schools are doing, there were some additional programming that schools like Stout have related to internships. So what an internship repository is, there's a graduate student in the Career Services Department currently that is reaching out to faculty across campus and asking like, hey, do you have any connections? Do you have any internships? Pretty much any connections that they have that students could utilize for their benefit, whether that be an internship or a job. That this grad student is collecting those, and the ultimate goal is to have a website where there's all of these connections, opportunities listed on there.
Personal note, Professor, or former Professor Justin Kilchman is the new position Abby's talking about. I had him last year as an accounting professor, and he was quite the professor. He did a really good job. But furthermore, I had a little flu bug I could not shake for a couple weeks last year, and he was very helpful in one-on-one conversations, office hours, and he essentially helped me save my own grade. So I would highly recommend seeing him. He's definitely proven himself.
Any other questions for Ryan, Deputy Speaker Patrick?
Is there any way I can access that yet, or do I have to wait for the website for that?
The internship repository. So the like contacts are still being collected. So the website isn't done yet, but that grad student is like actively looking, like gathering that data. So once I like get that once that's all done, I will be sure to let you all know.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice? Seeing none, with that, we'll move to the report of the Director of Student Affairs. Jacob.
Happy second week, guys. I hope it went fantastic. I met with Kim Clarkson about the campus reporting app. I also met with Director of Alistair and Christine Billhauer about the ladder and the faculty breakdown, and got a meeting set up for this coming week about what we can do to streamline funding the website, and what we can do to streamline and better make the Dean of Students look better and make it more understandable for most students. For this week, we're meeting with Kristen Billhauer and Frank Bartlett about the future plans, and I will be doing research on schools and student representation in California, another state where students can speak in faculty reports and can do student representation. I will also be attending a SUFAC and police hiring this week.
Wonderful. Any questions for Director Tom?
Can you explain why California?
They have some of the same, if I remember right, stature as us, and they also support student representation in faculty and with their policies.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, with that, we'll move to the report of Director of Internal Affairs. Once again.
Hello, everybody. I tried to keep it brief. Last week, I did my office hours. I went to the Martin Luther King event. I had City Council Landmarks Commission, met with the city manager, and had a 2-on-1 with the PGL department. This week, I have office hours again. I'm still working with the Political Science Student Association to collaborate alongside the PGL department and Law Society for a program in April, hopefully. So keep an eye out for more information on that. I'm meeting with Gabby Jolly this week. I am meeting with Vice President Boehm and the Interpersonal Violence Education Coordinator, Patricia Hiller, about It's on Us, also in April. And then I have the Chancellor's Inclusive Excellence Committee meeting this week, and hopefully, pending Senate approval, we'll be meeting with my internal committee this week. Otherwise, the election coming up is one day from tomorrow, so I expect to hear that you all have plans to vote for February 18th election. Otherwise, stay tuned. I yield to questions.
Questions, Senator Carr?
Do you mean 1 week from tomorrow?
Did I say, was it?
You said 1 day.
I'm so sorry, 1 week from tomorrow. Good catch.
What's It's on Us?
It's on Us is an interpersonal violence prevention event that is put on across the nation. Our university affiliates with that larger organization as a chapter through UHCF. Historically, student government has had varying levels of involvement, depending on if there's a director who is passionate about that topic. Luckily, I am. So I'll be doing a lot of work with them to rep student government through the process.
Who or what will be on the February 18th elections?
That will be the state superintendent primary. So there are 3 people running. The top 2 will go on to be on April 1st.
What's PGL?
Sorry?
PGL?
It's politics, government, and law.
Oh.
And who did you meet with?
I met with Dr. Lepp and Dr. Kimball.
Okay, right. Any other questions? Going once, going twice, seeing none, without the report of the Director of Communications. Please, Mike.
Okay, good evening. Oh my goodness, sorry. Good evening, everyone. Wow, you guys all had an amazing Monday. Okay, so for this week, I'm working on upcoming quotas for Valentine's Day and President's Day. I'm also meeting with Director Smith to talk about upcoming events for a collaboration outreach with PSSA and Law Society. And I'm also having my one-on-one with Vice President Dane as well this week.
Any questions for Director Lemon? Going once, going twice, seeing none, with that, we'll move to report of WSG Clerk. AJ West.
Alright, last week I sent out the executive election packets on Friday through email, and there's also physical copies came up at the office. If you want a copy of it and you guys can download it, or there's some more printed off ones, just let me know please. I had a meeting with UHCS and Associate Director Khan on supporting more students on campus through like mental health events and whatnot. I attended the MLK event on Tuesday. I hope that the involvement there, updated the website, continued on the backlog. And I had my first 2-on-1 meeting and cabinet last week. This week I'll be updating the website, uploading backlog, and my weekly meetings with Advisor Billiken. And then also I printed you all off a copy of Section 11 of the standing rules that I can pass out. I encourage you to read through it, even if you haven't been many times, so these 3 up here have. And I just looked up that for committees in a little while, if you are on the elections committee, I especially want you to look through this and remember for it, you cannot endorse any of these slates, but you can still have your own opinion and vote once it's time for the elections. And if you don't want to be a part of the committee, you can just let Speaker Wilson know and we can find someone else. With that, I yield to my report. That's my report.
Any questions for the clerk? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, with that, we'll move on to the report of Senate Parliamentarian. Clerk, go ahead.
Alright. So, this week I advised the speaker on an issue related to the standards of parliamentary procedure, which you'll hear about later. I advised the senator on how to write a piece of legislation, and to all our current, previously sitting senators and all our new sitting senators, if you ever want to know about like the processes of the Senate or WSG, I am here to help you along with that, help you understand them and how to use them to accomplish your work. So feel free to talk to me at any time or schedule a meeting. And then the main thing I spent time on last week was formulating new outreach events parameters. And those of you who have been here previously will notice that if you take a look at my report, I've listed out the parameters. You will see that they are a fairly dramatic departure from what we have previously done. My goal with these new parameters is to allow for senators to have as much freedom in completing the mission of outreach events. So there's a very simple goal to achieve, and then you can get there however you want. So yeah, to walk through the parameters, effectively each event has been replaced with 25 survey responses. Each event will consist of completing 25 surveys. I have printed out a number of QR codes. These ones will go up in the office in case you ever have someone in the office or stopping by. I'm also going to pass out handheld ones for you to carry with you. I can pass that on afterwards. These ones are a bit rough. I'll probably reprint out some nicer ones for the next meeting. And then I'll also, you can feel free to have me text you the QR code or email you the QR code so you can have it in as many forms as possible. So all you need to do for the outreach event, find a person, talk to them about WSG, about their issues and concerns on campus, make sure they understand WSG, make sure you understand what they're struggling with on campus, and then just have them scan the QR code and fill out the very brief survey and submit it. And then once you reach 25 of those, you will have completed a outreach event. The survey is very quick. It's basically name, email, and a series of yes and no questions. I don't anticipate it will take more than a minute. Now there's a number of ways you can go about accomplishing these events. You can stick with going to clubs and presenting to clubs and doing a speaking period with the clubs, as long as that event ends with the people in the clubs taking the survey. So yeah, I've also listed the dates in my report for when each event will be due. I've tried to give you about a month for each event, and I will also be completing this event so I can get a good grasp of what's needed for it and can provide accurate and experienced advice if you require it. And I will also note that the standing rules allows for the parliamentarian to make anything an outreach event. So if you have an event you would like to do, just come to me, talk to me, and I'll see if I'll determine if it has a large enough connection to role in connecting senators to their constituents to qualify as an outreach event. I've already made the book club, attending all 5 meetings, an outreach event because of the unique role it plays in better preparing senators to deal with their concerns and for the connections it will allow for them to form with SAI interns and housing employees. I'm meeting with Vice President Bain later this week to further discuss outreach events. I'm sure he'll have some ideas which might then make it onto into my report next week for new things that you can accomplish. So yeah, and then if you ever need any assistance with them, please just come talk to me. And then this week, Senate leadership, meeting with the Vice President, book club, I've touched on all of those. Meeting with the speaker, we were actually able to connect today, so I'm happy to announce that I'll be moving forward with plans to distribute flyers around the university to connect the Senate with their constituents, as well as outreach to first-year experience. As soon as I have the details of those plans, I'll be presenting them to the Director of Communications and her committee for their input and to ensure that they are in line with the overall message of WSG before moving forward with them. So yes, and that is all. I will now yield to my report, and I'll just stay standing because I don't think I'll be sitting soon.
Any questions for the parliamentarian? Start, Senator Carter.
Mr. Parliamentarian, I have to say, I kind of disagree with this format. As someone who works for the university center and that, I've sent out many surveys to students and only, not even 25 of them have responded yet. Now I get why you're doing this because a lot of them, you know, we need to outreach, but I'm just kind of confused on how you want us to do it, so. And will the form, is it a Google form or will it be on Connect 2 where all students can reach the survey even if they don't come up to us? Will it be on Connect 2 where all students can reach the survey if they have any questions at any point?
Well, the survey is meant to serve as just your way of showing that you connected with the student. So the outreach event itself is having a conversation with one of your constituents about what WSG is and what WSG can do for them. And then the survey is just something for you to give them, for example, through one of these handhelds or through the QR code. You'll have digitally if you want that from me at the end of your conversation so they can document that they had the chance to speak to a senator in that way. And did that answer your question?
Will it be a Google form?
It will be a Google form.
Okay.
Sorry, girls.
Okay, so I know it's like my first ever time doing anything like this. I'm not against the survey. I think it can be improved on. I think it can be sometimes awkward when you're talking to somebody face to face and then like sliding over a QR code for them to sign. So could there possibly be a way that like the senator gets like the student's name, email, all that to fill out the form like for the constituent? If like, would that, obviously like you don't have to have a yes or no answer now, but I'm just saying that could theoretically be a possibility.
Yes, so yeah, that would definitely be a possibility. You can't see who submitted the form. That part is anonymous. All it is, you just fill in who the student is. So if you want to, if it's easier to do that with them, to help them fill out that survey, then absolutely that's an option you can pursue. I will say, expanding on what you said, yes, this is likely going to be a bit awkward. It's going to be very similar, I think, to campaigning for your Senate seat when you have to stand around and catch people as they're passing by to try to convince them to give you their signature. It's going to be an awkward thing. Unfortunately, I feel that some awkwardness is a pretty low price to pay for the sake of being connected with our constituents. And as I said, there are alternatives to like standing around and interacting with people. You can set up a club meeting where it's part of the club's agenda and just get a whole bunch of surveys all at once at the end of that meeting.
Senator Schmidt?
So, I do understand what you're trying to get at here, but I think my big issue is that it just feels too forced. When I'm out there like sitting at like a lunch table, it's like the concerns are coming naturally, and I'm like, oh, can you elaborate on this? Now it's like you have the issues of like participant bias. They may just be like make something up or like exaggerate something just to give you something on paper. But you know, when I'm out there and I get these concerns, it's like it's natural. They'll come back from the dining hall and be like, oh, this was a crappy experience. And I'll be like, okay, tell me more about it so I can kind of flesh it out. I think it's just kind of forced interactions, and I'm not a big fan of it.
I totally understand where you're coming from, and I would not want to do anything to interfere with the organic relationship you have with your constituents, but I do feel that it is necessary to have some sort of apparatus in place to facilitate senators reaching out to their constituents, and then eventually it can become organic. I don't think that entire conversation that you were laying out can still happen as you laid it out. It will just end with you sliding a piece of paper across the table and them going on their phone for a minute. And I don't think that will have that much of a deleterious effect on your relationship with your constituents, and it will allow us to see that our senators are fulfilling their outreach requirements to the community.
President Bratton?
So, Mr. Parliamentarian, what I've heard you say is you'll be completing these outreach events yourself. So is there a possibility that you could change this if you feel it's not fair or equitable moving forward?
Absolutely. That's one of the, as far as I know, and perhaps Advisor Billigan remembers a time when something like this was tried, but as long as I've been here, nothing like this has been, and what outreach events have been. So I will be completing all 3 events with the survey, so I have a firm understanding of how well they're working, and so I can advise you from my own experience if you are struggling to complete it.
I would just encourage, considering not using Google, but to use Connect2. It will generate a QR code for you. It'll track who those students are if you want to get back in touch with them. And it also will get them into a system that may not have already logged into, and they'll be able to find out all sorts about student government because of the portal on Connect2. So I would just say, as you move forward with your process, you may want to consider how that interaction changes, because I could print a QR code right now that would take it to a form. So happy to help you with that. There are 2 interns that help with that too. But it will get students involved in a software that you're all paying money for. So just trying to drive some folks there so they can go back there.
So as I said, I am planning on reprinting these since these ones were slightly bit rushed, slightly bit rough. I mean, look at that, uneven edges, there's no color on this, it's terrible.
They can scan
so
it out of your phone.
The next ones, certain, since I have to reprint them anyway, certainly I'll look into using Connect to do it.
Do you have to be an officer to do a survey on Connect?
You have, I don't know for certain. I believe yes. But I do believe there's an administrative click other than officer that we could set that to. So it's not a problem to have Senate leadership have that access to do that. It'll be in the WSG portal. It will not be in the Warhawk portal.
Additionally, the speaker is listed as an officer and could always support the parliamentarian with creating a form that then everybody has access to.
I would just like to concur with some of the concerns of Senator Carter and Senator Schmidt. I think the efficacy of returns, seeing as, if I'm understanding this correctly, over the course of the semester, you're going to want 75 returns. Those expected to be unique, by 75 unique returns from each student, of students who will successfully fill out the form. I think there's also a risk of, to concur with Senator Schmidt, he talked about what seems like making inorganic communication. I feel if we almost have what used to be a perpetual campaign, that might actually decrease communication and other things, where it makes things more stiff and formal to the point where people might actually want to engage less with student senators. I mean, at a certain point, you can see how people around campus who are walking around with things, people start to stray away. You can almost watch as the sea parts around those individuals. And I can imagine if I'm holding a QR code, that sea will part as I reach out, and I will actually see this happen in real time. And at a certain point, while I can understand the offering being part of it, I can understand the reach out, I think we need to be just make sure we're being cognizant and appreciative, and make sure we're being reasonable with our expectations.
Absolutely. I will say that at the moment, I do not think the vast majority of students on this campus are familiar with what a student senator is. So perhaps in that light, some inorganic communication is better than the current communication, which evidently is not reaching enough people.
Senator Osborne?
So you wanted to leave it open to a lot of different opportunities to do this, correct? And which is why you had the survey and you didn't really have any specific opportunities on here. But as a new-ish senator in past semesters, a different parliamentarian decided to put different opportunities as examples in our on our packets. Would there be some way that you would have it written down for the new senators, considering that majority of our Senate just came in today, so that they would have an idea of what it would look like of different events that they could go to?
Yes, I anticipated that my report today would be quite lengthy, which is why I didn't include the list in this one. Next week, my report will include a list of potential different events that senators could utilize as places to communicate with students to get their surveys done.
Senator Houston, Senator Wheaton, and Senator Schmidt. Deputy Speaker Rodriguez, we're done.
All right, so I have a few things. First of all, Blake, I really appreciate you because you are someone who absolutely will fight tooth and nail and like you have an agenda of, you've stated from day one, you have an agenda of making, WSG more well-known, and you are truly living up to that, all right? So,
yeah, let's get some stuff.
We're gonna hate you for it, but it's okay.
And I just want to say, obviously there are a few things that, I feel we have to work out, and there are a lot of suggestions on how this could be, changed, how this could be improved. I just want to say, personally, I like the general idea. I really like, it really like takes it a step above, previously where it forces, us to go out there and inform students, and it makes sure, the students who are checking off these boxes, are educated about Senate. I also have a few critiques. So I think what is missing is the freedom of choice, which was present last semester. For example, there was something very similar that Nick Patrikas offered last semester, which was, I think it was reach out to and survey 15 students. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was 25.
25, okay.
Maybe all the feedback I got was below it, so.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention, is because I know Nick got a lot of feedback on it, and a lot of senators told him to maybe lower the number. And also, I believe that I think very few senators, if any, actually chose that option. So, zero, yeah. So I believe that, given the freedom of choice from senators, a lot of senators, obviously choose not to. But it is something I was honestly looking forward to, but I didn't have enough time to do it, so that is a whole other thing. But and also just another small thing, I know it was mentioned, there's debate on whether it be had on Connect 2 or Google Forms. If it were to be anonymous, that could be there is the potential for senators to abuse that feature by submitting fake responses. So at the very least, there should be an email verification or requirement just to ensure that there are no fake responses.
So to touch on a couple of things, firstly, I would say that of the forms of outreach events that I have seen, this is the one which offers by far the most independence for the senators, because each outreach event previously was to go to this event, do this thing. This is giving you total freedom as long as you connect with students and get the student to submit a record of that connection. You will have completed your outreach events. It is a huge amount of independence, a great amount of personalization present there. As for the concerns about abusing the anonymous part of the survey, if we switch over to Connect, which I think is likely, I don't believe that'll be a problem, right? Because it tracks the.
Correct.
Yes. That being said, when I was composing the system, the current system, I did think about that and wasn't terribly concerned about senators abusing it, but all in all, it's likely going to be mute now. So yes. Next question.
So I'm sure you didn't expect this much discussion on this tonight, but I just have a question for you. Would you be willing to think about it a little more and possibly create a group of senators who'd be willing to help you? I know I would be one, to reduce the portions a little bit, play with it a little bit, and see if this is the best route to be taking with outreach events to accumulate the data. I didn't think about it until don't know the senator's name, brought up that I would be reaching out to 75 people. Senator Esterholm would be reaching out to 75 people. Now that is a lot of people. My biggest concern with that is the other day when I was getting my signatures in Esker, not only did I disrupt a lot of meals, I could tell by body language some people were a little almost annoyed because I said, hi, I'm with Whitewater Student Government. And one person went, oh, them? And I went, whoa, don't want that. So if I go to Esker and she goes to Esker and the senator goes to Esker and they go to Drumlin, Esker, if we're all going to the same places, if we all have the same game plan of how we got our signatures, that's where we're going to cause an issue because I'm going to approach someone and then Senator Estrom is going to approach that same person at dinner time. Lunch and dinner, then they're going to get frustrated and have a negative sense of WSG. So I think there might be another way. I like the way this is going. I would love to help you or talk after, maybe to test it out to see if it would work.
Absolutely. I will say with the idea of a trial group, I agree that one is necessary. We just differ on scale a bit. You think it should be a couple senators. I think the Senate should be the trial group. And we'll see how I basically want to run this to the first due date and then do a review of how it's been going. And throughout that time, be doing an internal analysis. Like, yes, I actually didn't consider how that most people might converge on the dining halls and then you would just have a cluster of senators. I will say, I found greater success standing in the lobby of Esker and Drumlin, stopping people as they come in rather than going to table from table, but that's neither here nor there. But yes, so for my current intention is to run this through the first month, trying to figure out kinks as we go, trying to provide more details, more lessons, figuring out how we can make this work as a group, and then seeing where we are at the end of the first month.
This is like a little bit different than what we were talking about before, but this is genuinely a kink I think you're gonna run into. Sometimes when I am getting like this student feedback, a lot of students don't want to be tied to it. Like I genuinely will ask them like, hey, do you want your name on this? Do you want your name tied to this concern? Because there is risk of blowback that if all of a sudden, I don't know, for some reason a professor gets investigated and they're like, well, they're tied to it now. That's what I'm worried about. Because almost in all the research and like when I talk to people, I'm like, hey, do you want your name tied to this? And most of them don't want to be. Most of the time I'll just say, a student had this concern.
Absolutely. Very genuine concern. The surveys do not report what the individual specific feedback was. These surveys are not as meant to funnel feedback into the Senate as a whole. They are meant to document a individual senator's interaction with an individual student. My flyer initiative is meant to funnel feedback into the whole Senate. So all this does is ask, did you have a chance to express your issues or concerns with the senator, yes or no? Doesn't ask anything beyond that. The senator keeps that information and figures out how they're going to address it themselves.
Okay.
So if you fill the Senate, every seat's full, there's 27. And if every one of those students is reaching 75 students, that's 2,025 students total.
Yep.
With the student body of around 11,000, that's about 18% of the entire student body reached.
Isn't it marvelous?
Now, if we look at the current Senate number, 17, that's still 11.6% of this entire student body reached.
I know, I wish it was higher too.
Do you find that to be reasonable?
I do, because we are meant to represent the student body, and most of the student body doesn't know where it exists. A good portion of the remainder don't think we do anything, and a very small portion that does think we do stuff doesn't think we do it well. So yes, I think reaching 18% or 11% of the student body, establishing connections with them and showing them what we are doing will serve a very good function for the Senate. I hope that we one day reach it where 100% of all students have a chance to, at some point in their career, interact with the senator.
And we'll round out with President Wright. There's two things to say. First is Deputy Speaker Patricus gave you, we have nearly 12,000 total students, but only about 8,000 are undergrads on campus. So it's more like a quarter of students that you're going after. That said, I'm in my third year in this organization, my sixth semester, and I think the parliamentarian is right. I think this is going to provide a lot of flexibility. I think it's the most flexibility I've ever seen in an outreach event. I would just caution the group that continuity is very important in this organization, and I would hate to see Senator burnout. When my directors get working on committee work with certain senators, we can get more done when it's the same group that sticks with it. My only concern is that you monitor that and make a decision amongst all of you that's best for the Senate. But I think this is, you're right, the most flexibility I've ever seen in an outreach event. And the easiest way to get 25 signatures is to not get them at all and go to a book club.
Yes.
Shameless plug.
So if I could just parlay my answer to President Bradley's question to just kind of a closing remark. I'll mention one thing in that you can come to me if you have a specific event you think should be used in lieu of an outreach event as it's laid out here. That means you would not have to complete 25 of the signatures. That outreach event would count instead. For example, I know that Senator Carter worked the involvement fair, obviously an incredibly important outreach event. That will count as one of his outreach events. Yes, celebration. And then I'd just like to say in a broader sense, I know that this may seem controversial, quite frankly more controversial than I had anticipated. You've all raised very good points, very good questions about this, but I truly believe that this method of doing outreach is going to yield incredibly positive results for the Senate, which is going to result in a huge number of our constituents feeling that they are seen, feeling that they are heard, that they have a connection to their elected representatives, and for that feeling to be true, to be a reality. And I think it will have an immense impact for the senators themselves, as you'll be out there in the community gathering feedback from at least 75 people. I think this has a lot of potential, and I'll just say that I can't wait to work with you all to make it work.
Thank you very much.
And as a closing point, if anyone has anything they want to talk to me about first year experience working with them or my FIRES initiative, please contact me.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the report of our Deputy Speaker, Nate Patricus.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
I put QR codes up in the office last week, so thank you to those who did your office hour. If you didn't, you got an email from me earlier today. It's not about skipping classes or going to class, it is just about skipping your office hour. So that's the only way I'm going to track it. So if I see you in the office and you're like, hey, keep checking down, I'm still going to ask you to fill it out just so I can have a paper trail of who's in the office when. I don't have email access still, so when I get that, you'll get an email saying that I have it. So if you need to email me, continue using my personal or go to my WebEx and let it through there. Yes, and then if you go back in the reports to Advisor Billigins, there is section 3.1. If you have a concern that someone violated that, you can send me an email, because then I can call a meeting of the Internal Evaluation Committee to look into that. So that should probably be one of, if not the only people you go to. Adam, speaker, you.
Wonderful. Any questions for the Deputy Speaker? Going once, going twice, seeing none. With that, we'll move into my report. Last week, how are we doing, folks? Good? Awesome. Last week, I had the first Senate leadership meeting. It was brief in nature, but we kind of talked about fundamentals where we were going to. It's brief for Senate leadership. Then we went to the MLK event, me, I forgot Clerk West was there, President Bradley, and Director Balistrieri, as well as Linda Carter was, or Senator Carter was there. With the cabinet,
Director Smith, Director Billigan.
I'm so sorry.
Others I may have missed.
Others I may have missed, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Went to cabinet, worked through committee assignments, which we'll see in just a moment. Reviewed section 11 of the standing rules, whoa, isn't that fun? Met with Advisor Billigan, had a few of my meetings with senators already. Keep your Outlook calendars updated. I'll be tossing some meetings in there. Please see them. I'm normally going to be in the office at the time I schedule your meeting for anyways, but if you could just put that little check mark, even if you can't make it and it's not on your calendar, if you could just put the little no or the little yes, I will be there, I won't be there. No worries if you can't make it, but I'd like to touch base with all of you in the next 2 weeks or so. I am working with Andy Browning, the Associate Dean of Students. He'd like to begin attending our meetings more regularly and having some time to chat. So President Bradley talked about that, and we'll make sure that that begins to happen. And this week, I'll be going to Faculty Senate tomorrow, talking a little bit about the shared governance meeting location resolution. I'm interested in seeing how that goes. If you're interested, we're going to be addressing that in just a few minutes here. There's a book club, I guess, that I'm going to on Wednesday. I had Professor Benagi, Boki Benagi, 2 years back now, and I can attest that he has continued to make quite a strong connection with me. He definitely lives what is in the book. We're going to get coffee soon. He's a wonderful, wonderful gentleman. A repository of knowledge of sorts, and of course, as a president. So I assume it'll be a wonderful, wonderful time. Also, we'll have got an advisory committee this week. And that is all. I yield to any questions that Paul may have.
Since we reviewed section 11 of the standing rules, what's 11.16?
Always look at a paper copy before you answer that.
And I would like to add that I think
you're accurate.
I think the standing rules is a document that serves us best when we're looking at it, as Advisor Logan said, right? So when you're asked, or maybe somebody will quiz you because we do have copies of section 11, courtesy of the clerk laying in the office. If somebody asks you a question, don't go, what was it again? These are not rules or guidance that you want to think off the top of your head. Get the copy if you can and get as familiar with it as possible. Live in it, love in it, learn.
Isn't it true that you can also find full copies of the Constitution and standing rules on the student government website?
This is a feature. This is a feature. A website that is frequently updated by
bookmark that
clerk. But also, if you go in there, if anyone wants to see how to find that, go to official documents. You scroll down, it'll say WSG official documents shared drive. Click that big button. You will enter a drive, and you can see all of our official documents, meeting minutes, meeting agendas, and of course the Constitution and standing rules. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? Seeing none. With that, we will swiftly move on to unfinished business, starting with item A, S242504, Internal Committee Realignment Act of 2025. For the standing rules, we will move right into discussion. Senator Carter.
I make a motion to bring the legislative process back in line with the standing rules by removing amendments and referring the legislation to the Constitutional Revision Committee for review.
Need a second. By Senator Cox. Wonderful. With that, we will. The motion is on the floor, and I think we should move into discussion on it. Senator Carter, if you'd like to start with why, or you can yield to parliamentarian.
I yield to the parliamentarian.
Thank you, Senator Carter. And if I could, just so I'll start with laying out the process for standing rules change. It moves differently from other legislation. It is the only legislation which requires review before it hits the floor of the Senate. So that and constitutional amendments. So standing rules changes go before the Constitutional Revision Committee first. The Constitutional Revision Committee looks over it and then refers it to the Senate with advice. The form of that advice takes has changed over time, but the rules are absolutely clear. It must go before Constitutional Revision Committee first. Constitutional Revision Committee cannot block it, but they must review it. Unfortunately, Constitutional Revision Committee was not in session over winter break, and due to an oversight, the legislation was placed on the agenda without going before Constitutional Revision Committee, so is currently in violation of the standing rules as it was last week when we amended it. So this motion will strip out those amendments, which never should have had the chance to be made, because it should never have been before the Senate, and it will send it back to Constitutional Revision Committee where it should have gone in the first place. Then, once it is done in Constitutional Revision Committee, it will be reintroduced to the Senate and follow along its proper course of action. So that's basically a summary of what's going on. I encourage cannot strongly enough encourage every senator to vote yes on this motion. Our body, if we continue on, will be actively and knowingly violating these standing rules, which would be something of a constitutional crisis in the student government organization.
Or at least a violation of the standing rules we talked about earlier.
Yes, so, yes. Please vote yes so we can get this legislation back on track.
Deputy Speaker.
Per the WSG standing rules, any proposed changes to the WSG Constitution or standing rules may not be delayed or stopped by the CRC. So it doesn't need to go to CRC to look at, but it should. That being said, I would still encourage you to vote aye on committee referral.
Point of information. Just I've heard two conflicting things. Is it or is it not required to go back?
Oh, let's just.
I would yield to the parliamentarian.
Let me just.
Under legislation.
Oh.
Or advisability.
Yes, so it's right here in 11.b. All proposed changes to the WSG Constitution or standing rules must be sent to the CRC for review. That's fairly unambiguous. This section that the Deputy Speaker was referring to be delayed or stopped by the CRC, that exists so that the CRC cannot block things that they disagree with, but it must go to them first. After it goes to them, they can't stop it from going before the Senate, but it has to go to CRC first, and should be in order to ensure that all standing rules that reach us, we have a comprehensive view of.
Can the CRC agree and change it to the current changes that it is in this packet? Can they modify it to align with the standing rules and keep what we had changed multiple times last week if we agreed to do so?
Technically, CRC does not have legislative authority. The legislation can only be changed by the submitters or writers of the bill and then amended on the floor of the Senate. But I will say historically, in the time I've been here, CRC generally has made changes to the legislation, and those change through the consent of usually they've been writing it. I suspect this time there will be an ongoing discussion between the submitters of the bill and CRC over possible amendments, but no. In short, CRC cannot change legislation. The changes that we agreed on at the last meeting will be added to the new form of the legislation or amended on the floor of the Senate.
I'd briefly interrupt to yield to Vice Chair.
The CRC's purpose is to review a document that is submitted to the speaker, that is forwarded to the CRC committee. It is not a place typically where it is supposed to be written. It is a place where a document is supposed to be reviewed, and they're supposed to come to this body, the chair or the vice chair or someone who gets the short stick that week, and has to stand up at the podium and say, here's what we think are good things, here are pros, here are cons. They have to give you 3 of each, is kind of what the process has been. Now, if there's been active writing, because I haven't been in those committee meetings, that would be at the purview of the people that are in the committee. But to answer the question, I would say that if you think those changes that were arduously made last week and agreed to, I would hold those to make sure that they are reflected in whatever comes forward, regardless of what the CRC has to say, the CRC says. is that they're not supposed to be talking to you about what those changes are. They're supposed to tell you, this document we believe is good or bad or indifferent. So that's the concept that it's supposed to do.
I would even add that CRC as a body is designed to say, before it hits the floor, here is essentially how it's going to affect our standing rules. So here are some positive ways it's going to affect our standing rules and our functioning. Here are some negative ways we think it's going to affect our functioning. That's kind of the purpose of CRC as a whole. If you have any other questions about that, not to get into it, a great time for you to ask.
Yeah, then do we know why it missed visiting the CRC and being approved by them instead of coming here and now us kind of talking? Like, it's great to talk about it, but why didn't it go to them right away? Was there confusion? Did we not know?
So
Did we
as
get an
a
answer?
submitter of the bill,
Yeah.
we submitted it to the chair, and
Former chair.
And I think we were just a bit out of step, you might say. There may be disagreements on how interpret goes to would be read in the standing rules. I am not in the business of interpreting to get my way. So I think it's in the spirit of the standing rules to best say that it should have went in front of CRC as a committee, and it didn't. So we're gonna, I would advise that we send it back.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Going once, going twice. Seeing none. With that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senator Carter?
Aye.
Senator Irwin?
Aye.
Senator Esterholm?
Aye.
Senator Gross?
Aye.
Senator Houston?
Aye.
Senator Calvin?
Aye.
Senator Michael?
Aye.
Senator Miller?
Aye.
Senator Patricus?
Aye.
Senator Purnell?
Aye.
Senator Schmidt?
Aye.
Senator Wheaton?
Aye.
Speaker Wilson?
Aye. And with that, S-2425-04 Internal Committee Alignment Act of 2025, the motion to refer it to the Constitutional Revisions Committee is passed unanimous.
And strip it of its amendments.
And strip it of its amendments. That's passed unanimous. Wonderful. With that, we will move on to new business. Starting with the Spring 25 Committee Assignment Approval, I will briefly pass the gavel to the Deputy Speaker and encourage you all. Oh, that's so. It didn't quite print well because of the dark fonts I used, dark text. So if you could either pull up your laptops now or computers and pull it up, otherwise you've got it right up front there. So for those of you who are newer to our body, I added a couple of notings here. So this is all of your names and all of the committee assignments. So everyone is required to serve on 2 internal committees and 1 external committee. Because of the size and the frequent changes of that body, because of the way that those changes operate, if capacity issues are reached at all throughout the semester, this document can kind of flow and change. So if you are, no one currently is, but let's say in a few weeks somebody has like 4 internal committee assignments or something, we are welcome to begin kind of readjusting things. But these are the current layout of internal committees as well as external committees. Does anybody, I guess, if we could, I would start by saying, does anybody have any questions on any internal committees, external committees? It's section 8 of the standing rules if you want to turn to the description of any of those committees. Otherwise, I think most of it speaks for itself. The other thing to note is the folks who are highlighted, those names, if they didn't come take the oath of office, their signatures weren't verified by the clerk, will be removed. So, can I scroll on this? How do I get to external?
Scroll down a page.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so if you see, here's a good example. Edison Huck is somebody who reached out to me with interest in being on that committee. He's someone who may have interest in running for a Senate seat, but had time to be on dining committee, was very interested, explained passionately that he wanted to be on dining. He's an example of a student representative. So I guess you can appoint student representatives to committees. He's not currently serving on our body. So that is an example of what that would look like. He would stay, but somebody who is highlighted in yellow who did not get their signatures turned in and verified by the clerk, they would be removed from a committee. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, wonderful. With that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I yield.
Does anyone have any questions for Speaker Wilson? Senator Wiegman?
My last name is highlighted on that external committees, but I was approved. Was that
That is my
just,
mistake. I don't know how
okay,
that happened.
I was just,
We'll fix that.
because it was with that committee you just talked about the dining ones, I'm just clarifying.
I would encourage the floor to amend that if possible, if anyone wants to entertain that motion.
Affect anything in the committee?
No. Clerk will change them. Don't make the motion. We'll make sure it's reflected.
I guess I'll ask for unanimous consent to make that change reflected. Any objections? Hearing, seeing none? That change will be reflected. Any other questions? Senator Gross?
I mean, if we're making clerical edits in the other one,
Internal,
for
external?
internal, that one, for communications, my last name isn't highlighted when it should technically have been. If we're doing clerical.
We can add it. I mean, you have your seat now, so.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter, but like,
You're reflected.
Any other questions? If not, I have one. Are you able to walk through who is all a WSG representative on both internal and external?
Yeah, so most of the WSG representatives are on the elections committee, so I could be, forgive me if I missed someone. But generally, as you're going through this spreadsheet, if you see someone's full name, that either indicates that means they're not a sitting senator. What it means in translation is if you recognize the name, if you go to our official documents and look at our current roster, if you recognize the name as somebody who's on that current roster, an example would be on external, Abby Reiser's full name, Douglas Bradley's full name. Those are technically student representatives. They're serving on that committee as a part of their job. So it's a little different. Other names you might see, like I said, are on elections. So you see Chase Zimmerman, David R. McNeely, Isabel Cartwright, Clerk Emeritus, and Jordan Robinson, Director Emeritus. All those folks are folks who formerly served in the organization. I took a lot of care when I designed Elections Committee because I think Elections Committee is one of the most important committees we assign as we travel into election season. It's really important that those folks are willing to chart a course that's in line with Section 11 of the standing rules. So I wanted to, I hesitate to use the word veteran, but folks who are really familiar with the processes of our orgs, who understand exactly how a committee like that should operate. I wanted to fill it with folks who were newer and could kind of see how that committee works, but also folks who, had some experience of being around the committee process and also understand neutrality and all the other very important parts of Section 11.
Any other questions? Comments here
So looking at the elections committee, I just wanted to ask two of the people appointed to the elections committee, Isabel M. Cartwright and Jordan Robinson, were previously on a slate which has run against a slate which has already announced. Did the speaker have any concerns about a conflict of interest when placing them on the elections committee?
If you want me to be honest, yes, I did. And they were rooted out quite quickly. I had through one person, I had a conversation with Clerk Emeritus Cartwright. There's nobody I think would be more appropriate on a committee than Clerk Emeritus. Extremely familiar with Section 11. Also, extremely familiar with neutrality. I had a longer conversation that I don't think Jordan would be upset if I mentioned, where we chatted about, I mentioned some of those reservations. I think they're pretty obvious reservations to come to. They're not shocking in any regard. But he assured me of his neutrality personally, right? And that can only go so far, but I also took some time to think about what that looks like and its effect on the committee. And I have full faith that both of those picks are great picks. Actually, of all the committees I've designed, this is the committee I have the most faith in to execute their task. 100%.
I would just add in a conversation that we had with the speaker as well. The larger the committee, if for some odd reason, someone made an error in judgment, or perhaps didn't realize they were being biased, or just being naughty and being biased. The larger the committee is, the less power they have to skew significantly any decisions that come out of that group. So it's actually also a way to make the group function more neutrally, and there are steps that the clerk and I have already discussed that I encourage clerks to do every election that we have that talks about that, and have the group kind of share out what orgs they're in and what relationships they have, so that there's a great deal of, I hate to say transparency, but there's a great deal of information that they share about each other so people can hold each other accountable. So I think the larger the group, the safer it is.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, if you would, in that conversation with Advisor Bogan, she also advised that like quorum is particularly important in a committee like this. So if, say neutrality, as Advisor Bogan says, if somebody's being naughty, they must be removed from the committee. Quorum is 6. I believe there's 10 appointments. If that fluctuates at all, right, we have four naughties accounted for, if you will, which was by design.
Senator Houston, did you have something?
Yep. This is just like sort of like a refresher and also like informing new senators. So what exactly is the difference between an internal and an external committee in terms of their purpose and how they function?
I'm so glad you asked. So an internal committee is so we have a strategic budget and planning committee externally. But this budget committee, which is chaired by the president, is for WSG's budget. So every year we submit a budget to SUFAC, and they review it, decide whether or not to allocate funds to us, etc. That is an internal committee because it has to do with our internal budget. I mention that because, President Bradley, if you would, scroll to external. If you see your strategic budget and planning, somewhere around here, boom, SPBC, that is an external committee where we sit in this room with like, gosh, there's probably 40 people in that room, all like relevant stakeholders to the university budget, and Provost Chenoweth comes up, there are presentations by lots of different folks, and we internally analyze the strategic plan and the budget for the university. So I think that's the best example of a difference between an internal committee and an external committee. Another good way it's going to probably affect you, if you're in an internal committee, you're going to see friendly faces. They're going to be all the people you see sitting up here, all the people you see sitting next to you out there. If you're in an external committee, you're going to see there'll also be friendly faces, they're just ones you haven't met yet. And they're going to be academic staff, faculty occasionally, different folks who are relevant stakeholders throughout the university, in maybe landscaping, intercollegiate athletics, etc.
President Bradley?
Yeah, I'd say another big difference is chairs. There's only one WSG chair on all external committees, and it's the speaker. On one, all your internal chairs are going to be internal to the organization.
Senator Kaufman, did you have a question or?
No.
Parliamentarian?
Yes, I just want to ask, what is the penalty for missing either an internal or external hearing without getting permission from the chair?
Hearing?
Meeting, sorry. An external or internal committee hearing without permission from the chair.
As of, I believe, the standing rule changes we made last semester. I could be wrong, but I believe the very last bill we passed last semester was a standing rules change that allowed for that to count as an unexcused absence. If assigned work or meetings are missed, they could count as unexcused absences. I yielded the parliamentarian.
Not missing a meeting, yes. The unassigned work is in the legislation that was just referred to, constitutional revision.
So
that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it though, obviously. Very important to doing without penalty.
As the deputy speaker, I'll add to that. If I get word that you missed a committee meeting and didn't tell anyone, that will be an unexcused absence, and that's not really much leeway with that. Like, you're either there or you're not. And if you're not there, you gotta give proper notice to the chair. If you don't, that's cut and dry pretty much. Senator Calhoun.
Just a quick question. As a new senator, how do we get more information on our committees? Will this come via emails? Will this be something I have to will I?
I mean, I'll go to the speaker.
What was it? I'm so sorry. My collar was messed up. No one asked that question. I said your collar messed up.
On all internal committees, all the internal people are in this room, so they have these internal committee assignments and will likely be reaching out to them. The external ones, you're gonna have to reach out to the chair, so.
If anyone has questions about that, come chat with me after the
Can you
meeting.
scroll to the external committees? So whatever committee you're on, you're gonna look at the chair, type their name up, and send them a nice worded email that I'm now on your committee, and if you can, they can forward you all of the relevant information, the meeting times, anything that you need to know.
If you have questions about that, come to me and we can get you the directory. Most of these folks, you put their email in, nice and easy, but if you want to, I don't know, give their office a call or something, you're more than welcome. I would advise you email them, but you have a directory for a reason, and it's so that you can get to those folks.
Director Smith, did you have something?
Is there a standard for what's considered an excused absence, or is that up to the chair?
Do you mean internally, externally?
Both.
Internally, chairs can request it, but it is up to the speaker and the deputy speaker to decide it, I believe. Externally, it's really kind of like I trust you to do your job, we trust you to be there, but we also have conversations with a lot of these people by just seeing them, so it's like, I go meet with Gabby Crowley, and I mean, that's a bad example because I'm on that committee, but if I talk to Eric Lepp and Speaker Wilson wasn't there, then that might be a conversation to have with Speaker Wilson. Advisor Logan?
Is it true that when you attend a meeting, you would have a report for the meeting that you would give to the Senate?
That is true.
Indeed.
It's very similar to the one Senator Carter gave today.
Yeah. Required at the meeting after you attend the committee.
Thanks for that. Senator Houston?
So there are 3 students who ran for open Senate seats, and they all did an amazing job, by the way. But will they be assigned to committee seats after they take the oath of office?
Well, they absolutely will, and I would go even further to say if somebody runs next week and if somebody runs the week after that, they'll also be assigned to a committee. If you could scroll over to the noting. So that's why this noting was included. It hasn't, at least to my knowledge, as long as I've been a senator, this noting hasn't been there, and the reason I included it is just to say the size of the Senate fluctuates super often, and what that means is all of a sudden somebody accidentally has 2 committee assignments externally, and somebody has none, and that's a super easy issue to fix. That's why the standing rules is written that way. You come talk to me, we'll make sure it all gets worked out. So any new senators, one of the reasons I have meetings with senators as soon as they're appointed is because as soon as I get to touch base with them, I go, hey, do you have any interest in any of these internal, external committees? One of the reasons I'm invited to cabinet is I get to ask the directors every week, like, hey, how are things going on in your committees? And then Director Smith can say, hey, we're gonna have a heavy workload this week. If any new senators come around, could you maybe talk to them on my committee? And those are the kinds of things that we can do, given the purview of the standing list there. Good, amazing question.
President Bradley?
Yeah, I want to go back to the attendance aspect. When I look at this list, maybe every 2 weeks I see about 90% of these folks. And typically the first thing they say to me is, ooh, where's so-and-so? They haven't been at their meeting. So it does make its way back, and then I tell the speaker, and the speaker tells the deputy, and or if I don't see them, they typically send me an email. I get lots of emails about people missing, which I always say, you should email the deputy speaker. So please don't make me get emails or have to hear about you.
Embarrassed for you.
Parliamentarian Arrow?
So I was just wondering if the speaker could speak briefly for the newer senators on the importance to committees in helping the directors achieve their work.
I would actually, I mean, if there's a director willing to, I would yield to Director Wise. We had a conversation where we kind of intently chatted about, I like to touch base with the directors before they assign certain senators to their committees, because I need to get a gauge of the kind of work they'll be doing. And For instance, right, when I spoke with the clerk about elections, right, I had 6, 7, 8 people appointed, and she said, whoa, quorum, big issue here. Let's get that number up a bit. So I would yield to Director Reiser if you want to speak to that for a moment.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm working on is the instructor awards that is in April. And really, what's really helpful with having senators on this committee, a survey is sent to the entire student body, and we got about 350 responses last year. And so then I segment that into the 9 awards that we have, and then I give specific awards to senators, and then I do the work with you because I don't like to just assign and not participate in it too. And then you look through the data, and it's really not that difficult. And then we all come together and we vote on who the winning instructor is for that award. So that would be a lot of data analysis for me to do on my own when I'm trying to do other logistical things for that on top of the other meetings and things I'm working on in this role. So it is really helpful having senators, and just your feedback is helpful because I can't decide the winning instructors by myself. It's nice to get that additional feedback so that we do determine that in the most appropriate manner.
Any other questions? Senator Houston?
All right, last question, I promise. So let's say a current senator sees a committee that they really like, but they are not a part of. Would they be able to join that committee? And if so, who should they contact?
I would encourage you to talk to Speaker Wilson, maybe potentially after the meeting, or right now.
Well, maybe not right now, not this instant, but after the meeting, come chat with me. I hesitate to say yes, you will be a part of that committee, because some committees are small in their number. For instance, if you see an internal evaluations committee, if you go oh, I wish I was on internal evaluations committee, it's we only get so many appointments for the standing roles. But if you go oh my gosh, there's one external committee that I really want to be on, and it's library services. I know Paul pretty well. If you want to come to library services, we could probably get you in one of those meetings, or we can work with you. Not a lot of these committees are voting committees. For instance, me and Doug aren't on Warhawk Dining Committee. We stop by occasionally, first meeting, last meeting, etc. So that's kind of how that conversation would go. Come chat with me after the meeting. We'll make sure you get to the right place. I try to facilitate that as much as I can through my role. So.
And then with the last question, President Bratton.
Just a super quick comment. Most of these committees, they reach out to us and say, hey, you get one student, who is it? We can't put as many students as we want. I shouldn't even say we's an organization. I don't touch these at all. The speaker gets one person. Yeah. And there's a few that we have directors on. So.
And when I go through, right, so when I go through, especially external committees, I highlight all of those and I put UW committee afterwards. And I take a look at the website and see, do we have one? Do we have multiple student representatives? Do we have some connections that we can utilize to get some people in the room if necessary? Those are the kinds of things I weigh. And if you want to come give me more information, please. The more I know about you, the better we can not only serve each other, but serve students. So.
All right, and then with that, I'm going to look for a motion to approve. Someone interested in making that? Senator Miller.
I motion to approve.
All right, and look for a second. Ooh. Senator Calvin.
Motion second.
All right, look for voice vote.
Acclamation.
Commissioners, any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, these are approved unanimously.
There it is. Wonderful. It's nice to taking the questions for a while. All righty. With that, we will move through new business even further on to Shared Governance Resolution 2024-12-1101, resolution on shared governance training location. President Bradley of the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was sent this most recent Thursday. I did not have any part in drafting this joint resolution. As you can see, it has passed Academic Staff Assembly and University Staff Council. It basically explains that all shared governance groups listed here, ourselves included, USC, ASA, and Faculty Senate, give priority booking to room reservations in the University Center. I encourage you to read it. I won't share my beliefs unless asked.
Wonderful. With that, we'll move on to questions. I'd like to start with, when you say priority booking, can you just explain what that means to the room?
Sure. So currently, let's say Department of Politics, Government and Law wants to book a room, this room, 7 p.m. Sunday nights. They cannot because we're a student organization and already booked it. Let's say they book it before us and then we book it. What did I say?
You said something.
Think about football. Can't help it. Monday night. Let's say they've already booked it for Monday night, 7 p.m. We can still come along and book it because students pay segregated fees that go to the University Center. But no student or student organization is given the right to priority booking. They essentially buy the right. They purchase the right to priority booking.
How do they purchase that right?
Segregated fees.
You're not eligible.
Yeah.
Senator Carter?
President Bradley, isn't it true that if this does pass, they would have to pay what us students pay?
I would say no, that's not true. I will say shared governance joint resolutions do not supersede campus policy. And in this case, there is an existing campus policy that gives students, and not shared governance groups, priority booking. We as an organization have priority booking because we are a student organization, not because we're part of the shared governance framework here at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater.
Senator Calvin?
Just to clarify, how much is the number? If we have even a rough estimate,
Sure,
how
yeah.
much the student body spends to have this privilege?
I met with Angela Adonian, as I mentioned in my report. We stopped counting at $300,000 a year. I cannot imagine other governance groups being on board with that. So we ended it there. I can give you a more accurate number, but Director of Building Operations is down on vacation, so we can get a little more accurate one later on.
Director Count?
If I remember right, seg fees right now for students between $655 to $650.
And that's split up between, segregated university fee allocation committee, right, they go into different student orgs and whatnot, and the non-allocable side, and even the non-allocable goes to different departments. So just of the section of money you pay that goes to null, and then from null goes to this building, and then from this building just goes into building operations, is $300,000 at a very, very, very minimum.
You ladies would like to as well.
I would just add that it's not so, there is a University Center building facilities use policy that was approved by the UC Advisory Board that this group has. Who's on the UC Advisory Board? We just approved that. Came through that group, came to this organization for it to look at it. So there's a pre-existing university policy that talks about who is eligible for priority reservation of the space too. So they're asking you to supersede a university policy. Specifically that you've had a lot of weigh-in, as did they, I might add, because they're on that committee as well.
Let's move to discussion now. Any discussion on the matter? I'd like to start, if possible. I think I'm really trying to be kind of kind with my wording because it's going to be reflected in the minutes. I would encourage you to vote no and disapprove of the resolution. I think the reason students have priority that room, and our questions we're getting is because we pay money. And that it comes out of every single student's bill. That's why we have priority of room bookings. And I think it's mighty bold of some of the other shared governance organizations on campus to assume that because they're shared governance organizations and nothing else, they get priority over the room.
Mr. Speaker, like you said.
I would also yield to the president if he wants to. I'm asking you now officially if you'd like to express your opinion.
Sure. I'm greatly opposed to this piece of joint resolution. like I said, this was not shared with me until Thursday. Well, you can see the first group approved it December 11th of last year. We were still in school. Student government was not made aware of this joint resolution. A couple of notes I have. I don't see the point of it. All 4 groups could pass it, and nothing would change because we have a building policy. This piece of legislation only isn't controversial, it's pointless. I think there's better ways of governance than slapping legislation around and trying to force your hand. I've heard of instances and confirmed by those who work in this building that there was scheduling errors last year. They've assured me that it's been fixed. There is, I believe, Faculty Senate. They have this room second and fourth Tuesday every week, every month, 2 to 4 p.m. There was only one of those meetings that they did not get this room, and building folks helped them find an alternative. I think, I'll say it one last time. No student is given the right to priority booking. About 8,000 students purchase the right to priority booking. So I'd be happy to lead a conversation with other groups about what a fair price is if they want to purchase the same right.
Senator Cowan?
I would like to concur with the president and agree with some of the points that if we want to pass something back, it might be saying to genuinely ask what they'd be willing to pay for the privilege. I also think it'd be a very nice, I wouldn't hate to have the conversation with my constituents of why their event was bounced. And if assuming, I know this is a joint resolution, this might not happen, let's just say something happened on this because it did. I don't want to have that conversation with a constituent that their event got bounced for a faculty thing, and then to say, oh, why are we doing SUFAC? Then we have to have why are we paying these fees? And I have to have all these conversations, and everything else gets out of control. And as we've already talked about, I think parliamentarian Irwin had brought up earlier that the reputation of student government may or may not be great. I would prefer not to dig holes deeper that already exist.
Deputy Speaker Peters.
You pay about $380 each year for this building. It's fluctuates year to year, but that's for the right to priority booking to
Per person.
You can go to reservation as per person per year. So,
Mr. Deputy Speaker, how much was that dollar amount?
$385.42, I believe.
So about 8,500 students pay site fees, not up to 1,000. A little quick math, $3.2 million.
385 times 80, it's not, we don't use that number for nulls.
What's the null number?
Oh crap.
8204.
8204?
8204.
Yeah, thank you.
8204, wow.
It's been that way for 2 years.
3.1 million, my apologies.
Little chump change.
$3.16 million.
Just a zero.
So that's how much the student body pays every year for the right for priority booking for this room.
And everything else at the university center.
The whole university center.
Part of that priority booking for reservations. So academic staff assembly don't pay that. University staff council doesn't pay that. Faculty senate doesn't pay that. If they would like priority booking, I would urge them to consider the benefits versus what they're currently getting out of their, situation.
I think it got lost in the discussion, but are they currently paying, or they're just using these rooms for free?
Yep.
And we're the ones paying, the students are the ones paying for them, correct?
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
If some of you recall, we've heard similar pieces of legend in the past, different policies in the past. Folks external to the university have to pay. I believe there's some even folks internal to the university who have to pay. And shared governance groups are an exception. So they already don't have to pay to reserve this room like a normal department would or something. But they're looking for priority as well.
Any other discussion? Senator Cowan.
So this is more of a question, just to clarify, we wanted a point for, if we don't have this number, this is fine, but for each use of the room per semester, how much, if they were paying like we were paying, would they be paying for a use?
I'd like a yield to the advisor.
We don't compute it in that manner.
No, that's.
Yeah, I mean, because we would have to take, the University Center has 3 branches that are funded, well, 2 branches that are funded with your money and that fee that we talked about. So we have to figure out the cost of all those people, how many, like, student health, all that kind of stuff. So we don't really have it broken out. In that facility use policy there for external, folks that use, like if you were having a wedding here or that kind of stuff, that's based on the cost of, the students and that work the event plus a lump sum for the like cost of the room. So we don't really figure it out that way. That's why President Bradley asked Angela what that number was, and that's why she couldn't figure it out, because that's not how we do the budget, if that makes sense.
When we got to that 300,000, that was just student workers and technology, I believe. Not full-time staff, building maintenance, anything like that. We were at a $300,000 mark. If that helps answer your question.
We should let the vice president know that you can get married. I didn't know that. You can do a marriage here?
Oh, we've had lots
I
of
think they
weddings
amended
here.
For those confused, Vice President Parker been getting married. It's very public.
He's engaged.
He's engaged.
And
it's
last one, Deputy Speaker. Tree.
I just want to reiterate, I guess I would encourage you all to vote no on this. We'll be voting on endorsing this, and I would encourage our body to pass this back as failed Whitewater student government.
Wonderful. With that, Madam Clerk, when you're ready, would you please call the roll?
Senator Carter,
Nay.
Senator Irwin,
Nay.
Senator Esterhold,
Nay.
Senator Gross,
Nay.
Senator Houston,
Nay.
Senator Hilton,
Nay.
Senator Michaels,
Nay.
Senator Miller,
Nay.
Senator Trickus,
Nay.
Senator Cornell,
Nay.
Senator Schmidt,
Nay.
Senator Wheaton,
Nay.
Speaker Wilson.
Nay. And with that, Shared Governance Resolution 2024-12-11-01, resolution on shared governance meeting location has unanimously failed the Whitewater student government on February 10th and will be sent back accordingly.
I'll see to it that they receive notification of the speaker.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to announcements. Any announcements for tonight? I'll go first. Go Birds! Director Rath.
If you could all look at the committee assignments, if you're on the academic affairs, please see me after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Smith.
If you're on my committee, you received an email from me earlier this afternoon with a calendar invite that you should accept, please. I really hope your calendars were up to date. If they weren't, it's going to be really hard to find the time.
Ms. Bradley.
If you'd like a placard, and it's expected that you have one, you need to email Parker. Vice President Bam.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So theoretically, if there was like a group email, would that also work?
Sure.
Okay, wonderful.
That's name, pronouns, what district you're in, things like that, so we can put them on.
If you'd like, I intend to send a whole big email, so staff of the meeting, if you don't have a placard, come over and we'll shoot it out to the vice president.
Additionally, I don't know if you've heard, but there may or may not be a book club on Wednesday, 2 to 3. It counts as an outreach event. So if you're worried about 75 survey responses, it's really only 50 plus the book club. So that's a third of them gone, like that. Please come talk to me. We'll get you the book. It is not a long book.
I have it right here.
There is not a lot of reading.
Lots of diagrams. I
I mean-
have the QR code right here if you want to.
It's very easy. I think I'm a pretty cool dude. I mean, I'm not gonna yell at you.
Via the Assistant Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Frank Bartlett, tomorrow at Goodhue, international dinner tickets start going on sale. They are $5 for students. Mark your calendars, March 7th. In the Hamilton room is the international dinner. Tickets go on sale tomorrow.
Parliamentary Room.
Just want to take the pulse of the Senate real quick. Could I see a show of hands of people who think the new system of outreach is a idea, even with kinks, worth pursuing? Just raise your hands if you think it has.
I'd like to add, Senate leadership's going to abstain.
Okay.
Idea worth pursuing is what we're raising.
Yes, idea worth pursuing. Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
If you could all put your hands and placards down, it's gonna make calling in very complicated.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, never mind. I'll just come around and hand these out now. In case you want to get started on your surveys.
What?
You'll eventually hear from me if you're on the elections committee. Also, on Friday, Alpha Gamma Delta is having pearls and pancakes, $7 for a plate, which is 3 pancakes, 2 sausages, and Sunday. $10 for all you can eat, and then we have a eating competition, which is $35 to enter, a team of 4 people. Whoever eats 20 big pancakes quickest, they will get $70 back and a trophy. So if you're interested, please contact me.
That seems like a fantastic way to get a lot of signatures.
Advisor Milligan?
Just a reminder that if any organization is looking to use a free web server for their web presence, there is a workshop tomorrow at 4 o'clock and Wednesday at noon on Connect2, because that is part of the software. They will give you website space. So if anyone's interested in their org using that for free, there you go. Thursday 4 p.m. Wednesday noon.
Direction.
There is an election 1 week from tomorrow. UC 275. If I don't see you there, I will be finding you and asking if you had an absentee ballot. Everyone in this room, keep that in mind.
Senator Carter.
Tomorrow in the Hamilton room, if you want to learn how to line dance, they're having cardio line dancing for Heart Month. It's instructors coming in from Milwaukee. We will also be having a art workshop where you can make your own pencil pouches and your own pens. So come on by and learn about heart health, wear comfy clothes, and get your cardio line dancing done tomorrow.
If you or someone else want to get involved with another student org here on campus, Pi Sigma Epsilon is currently in the midst of a recruiting week, so spread the word to business majors here. It's a great way to get involved.
Wonderful.
If you're on my committee, the Internal Evaluation Committee, you're on standby. Typically, the committee does not meet, so very likely we will not meet at all. Hopefully not. But if we do, you'll get an email. And then also, fly Eagles fly.
If you're on the Student Affairs Committee, send me an email. It's in the packet. It's a thank you and update our calendar.
If you're on the Student Affairs Committee, please email Director Khan and Director Balistrieri, as they are co-chairs. Additionally, if you're on my committee, we've already gone kind of through that budget season approved by SUFAC, so we'll meet very often. I'll kind of keep you all posted, but just know that.
Wonderful. Any other? Nope. All right.
I can skip it if we're that.
That's okay. Well, we're moving right on to adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Senator Grimm.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Senator Schmidt. Wonderful. Can I get a voice vote? And with that, only an hour and 15 minutes after the speaker's prediction, we're out here at 9:33.
No, I don't. You know what? I'm just giving up.
Erwin.
Oh, it is.
Well, obviously after that, there's even